Hello, welcome to Siena College, or welcome back to Siena College, depending on the case. My name is Bebb. I'm the Associate Dean of Students, and I'm here to talk to you today about the sexual misconduct policy, some of your rights under the policy, some resources available to you, and just a general explanation of how the policy works. You can find more about our sexual misconduct policy by visiting siena.edu/sexual violence prevention. Following this presentation, you may have some questions, or you may want to do some more reading on the topic. There's lots of information there, and I hope that you will look at it. Our policy prohibits sexual violence, sexual harassment, and other gender-based offenses in all college programs and activities. And that can be anything from classroom to residence hall to the activities that you yourself are involved in. We could also violate laws through the public criminal justice system. We want you to be able to use this policy and to be protected by this policy in all aspects of your college life. What is sexual violence? Well, it's a physical act of a sexual nature perpetrated against a person's will, and I think we all knew that before, and it is correct. But it's also when a person is incapable of giving consent, and that incapability of giving consent can be because of the victim survivor's age, their use of drugs or alcohol, or their inability to give consent due to intellectual or other disability. I don't think it would surprise anyone to know that our consent issues usually are surrounding drugs or alcohol, and the use of that in the event of a sexual misconduct or sexual violence. Important to note that 1 in 5 college women experience completed or attempted rape, and that 6.1% of men experience that as well. What is sexual harassment? Well, sexual harassment is a big term, and it's really the umbrella under which most of these other definitions fall. It's any unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature, whether that's catcalling or repeatedly asking someone for sexual favors. It can also be physical contact, grabbing someone, groping someone, that kind of behavior. All of those things are considered sexual harassment. Other gender-based offenses, first is dating violence. This definition that we use comes from the federal government, and it's a good definition, but we're not worried about applying the definition. If you are in a relationship or you know someone who's in a relationship where there is physical behavior or emotional behavior that is isolating, we want you to get help. We want you to be safe. We want you to report to us, whether it's you or someone else, so that we can get involved. It doesn't have to be fitting the definition. We don't want you to worry about that. We'll worry about that. We just want people to be safe and successful. Stalking is another gender-based offense, and sometimes people are surprised that we have stalking on campus, and we do. I think it's because people perceive stalking as that hanging around in the bushes, following someone around kind of behavior, and that certainly is true, but most of our stalking behavior is online, repeated texting, repeated calling, use of social media kind of behavior. And I like to talk about stalking because I want to make sure that I get people in to talk about situations that they may be involved with early. Stalking often on our campus occurs when people are involved in a relationship for a couple of months and it's very intense, and one party wants to be not a part of that anymore. They want to break up, they want to pursue other interests, and the other party doesn't know how to respond to that. And so consequently, they're following them online, they're repeatedly texting them, repeatedly calling them, to the point where the other party feels that it's just gotten out of control, but they don't want to report because they used to really care for this person and they like them and they don't want to see them get in trouble. And we don't want to see them get in trouble either, but we want to make sure that the behavior stops. So we want you to get involved with us early so we can get the person in, correct their behavior, let them know what kind of that they're walking a dangerous path, and help them to get back on the straight and narrow, so to speak. New York State is an affirmative consent state. That means yes. That you need to have a knowing, voluntary, and mutual decision among all participants to engage in sexual activity. Consent can be given by words or actions as long as that creates clear permission. And that's really important. Clear permission. It needs to be unequivocally understood that it is, in fact, a yes. Someone who is incapacitated cannot consent, and I'm going to talk about incapacitation in a few minutes. Consent to engage in sexual activity with one person does not imply consent to engage in sexual activity with another person. Consent can be withdrawn at any time. Yes means yes, and no means no. And the definition of consent does not vary based on a participant's sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. All people are covered under this policy. This is Hannah Witt, and I'm going to show you a short video from her that will explain consent, I think in better terms than me, or certain different terms than me, and then we'll get back to the rest of our presentation.
Here today. Hold on. Hey everyone, it's Hannah from the YouTube channel Hannah Witten, and the lovely Mike and Emma have asked me to host this episode of How to Adult, all about consent. This is going to be like a consent 101 class, and I know that it's a very sensitive subject, so if you feel like I missed anything out or could have phrased something better, that's what the comment section is for. In school, the most I ever got taught about consent was no means no and don't do it until you're ready. But that's not enough when it comes to understanding consent. First of all, here are some other things that you might hear that also mean no. I don't really feel like it. Not tonight. I have a headache. I'm not sure. Instead of watching out for a no, instead seek out a yes. So what is consent? Consent is a voluntary, enthusiastic yes. Unassumed. Mandatory. Consent can be verbal or non-verbal, taken away at any point. For some stuff, and not other stuff. If you are unsure your partner has given consent, ask. You cannot get consent if they are under the age of consent and you are above it, they are blackout drunk or high, there is a power imbalance. This one's a bit more of a grey area, but some examples are if there is a massive age difference, someone's in a position of responsibility, such as a teacher, student, or a celebrity fan relationship. And for the people who still think it ruins the moment or is unsexy to ask for consent, you can't argue with the amazingness and the sexiness of being 100% sure and without a doubt that your partner is into it. One, it's the right thing to do, and two, you won't be worried about misreading any signals. You can just relax and have a good time. Thank you for watching. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to How to Adult and you subscribe to me too. How to Adult doesn't have a catchphrase, so I'm just going to steal one from one of my favorite channels, Sexplanations. Stay curious.
I hope that helped to explain the idea of consent a little bit more clearly. She talks about being blackout drunk or high, and that gets in the way of consent. I want to talk about being incapacitated for just a few moments. Alcohol confuses those lines of consent, as do other drugs. Evidence of incapacity comes from context clues, such as asleep, lack of consciousness. And, that's certainly a context clue. If someone is asleep or they're unconscious, they're not interested in having sex. And if you do that, if you force a sexual behavior on them, you're committing a crime. No one wants to do that. No one wants you to do that. And again, you can't get affirmative consent from someone who is asleep or unconscious. Assessment of how drugs or alcohol impact an individual's decision-making ability, awareness of consequences, their ability to make informed judgments. All of that happens when someone has had too much to drink or too much to drug. Do people drink and have sex or take drugs and have sex? Of course they do. But when you're to the point where you can't make a good, informed, affirmative consent, then it has gotten far beyond you and should not occur. In other words, alcohol and sexual intimacy do not mix well. As a student here at Siena College, you have some reporting rights. At the first instance of disclosing a report, you have the right to confidentially disclose a crime or violation to a counselor in the counseling center, to health services, a college friar, or anyone in the college chaplain's office. Confidential resources will share options, give you some advice, and listen to what you have to say without any obligation to tell anyone. In fact, they won't tell anyone unless there is a safety issue involved. They may assist you in becoming comfortable enough to make a report, but they will not make a report without your consent. You can also make a report to public safety, the colony police, or the state police, or any combination thereof, or choose not to report. You can report the incident to the college, be protected by the college from retaliation for reporting the incident, and to receive assistance and resources from the institution. We will always, if you're making a report to public safety, part of our process is to ask you if you would like to have the police involved. You can say yes or no, but we will never encourage you to not contact the police. If that is what you want, we will make it happen. You also have the option to make a report with privacy, which privacy means you report it to college officials, and to the extent possible, we will keep the group that understands the issue, may be investigating the case, to a very small number. That it is not out in the community, your name is out in the community, the incident itself is not out in the community in any way tied to the person making the report. And also you have the right to be accompanied by an advisor of your own choice who may assist and advise you throughout the conduct process, including during all meetings and hearings related to the process. And that can be your lawyer, it can be a doctor, it can be your best friend, it can be your roommate, it can be your mother or your father. All those things are acceptable. Again, they can't represent you, but they are there to assist and advise you in the process. Some campus resources, again, just to be clear: our counseling center, the Office of the Chaplain and Friars, and health services are all confidential resources. Our private, non-confidential resources, the Title IX coordinator, your CA, your community advisor, and or your RD in your building, public safety, the Office of the Dean of Students, and the Office of Health Promotion. We also have an anonymous tip line that you can find through the Public Safety Office, a place to make a complaint or give us a tip or give us some information. It's a little bit more difficult to conduct an investigation. We have an anonymous tip, but we will do that. And sometimes it's a good stepping stone, a good first step for people, but we don't know who makes the report. We're here to help. And you can expect when you make a report to college officials care and compassion, support and safety resources for both on and off campus, reporting options both on and off campus, assistance in accessing resources, and a fair and equitable investigation. We also have a welfare of the community policy, commonly called an amnesty policy. And that's for people who are concerned about making a report, but they themselves may have been violating the code of conduct and they don't want to get in trouble. For example, they had a friend who was sexually assaulted, but that night they were doing drugs or drinking alcohol and they're under the age of 21 and they're concerned about getting charged under the code of conduct. Rest assured that you will not. You will not be charged because you have acted in the welfare of the community, in the best interest of our student population. We may talk with you about your alcohol or drug behavior, but you're not going to get charged or underneath the policy. And so that's very important that you feel comfortable reaching out, and we do that on purpose for that. You can learn more about our policy by looking at Siena Life, which is available at the Dean of Students webpage, or the Sexual Violence Prevention website, which again is siena.edu, Sexual Violence Prevention. Some people that are important within our Title IX office: Lois Goland, she's our Title IX coordinator. Her address is right there in Siena College, the Saracen Student Union, room 235. There's her phone number. It's a dedicated Title IX line, and you can reach her to make an appointment. And there's her email address if you have questions or you want to reach out to her. It's right there. And then there's me, John Bebb. Like I said, the Associate Dean of Students. I'm also here in the Saracen Student Union. My phone number is there to make an appointment or ask a question, and the same with my email address. You can find other deputies and other contact information on two different websites: the Sexual Violence Prevention website that I mentioned before, and our Discrimination and Harassment website, also at siena.edu, Title IX EEO. I thank you all for listening to this presentation. I hope you have a safe and healthy and successful semester. Welcome to Siena.